We do this a bit untraditionally, but let me first invite all of the panelists. We have 5 in total, a big panel to end today's sessions with. Hopefully you have energy to survive 1 hour more, where we'll discuss journalism in repressive media environments. So let me welcome Lina Attalah from Masr, an online news site in Egypt. Sonny from CEO and co-founder of Frontier Media in Myanmar. Then we have Ruşen Çakır, who is the editor-in-chief of Medyascope in Turkey. Then we have Brice Ndangoui, who is deputy editor-in-chief of Radio Ndeke, Luka in Central African Republic. And then finally, we have Befeqadu, Hailu, Techane, who is the executive deputy editor of the newspaper Addis Maleda in Ethiopia. So a very big panel. And we also have some translation being done. So please bear with us for this very final panel. So I'm going to give a brief introduction before I leave the words to each of our panelists. And as I said before, we do this a little bit untraditional, meaning instead of me asking a bunch of questions to all our panelists, we will have each panelist go by turn to give a short presentation, a short description about the difficulties that they are facing in their specific context. So context is extremely important to understand survival strategies. And these 5 different courageous people work in very different media environments. And we need to understand that context before we can understand how they have actually been able to think about different strategies to counter that repressive environment that they're working in. So all of this today is about, focusing on media working against the odds. And as you know, journalism around the world is extremely pressured, whether it's by closing civic spaces, repressive legislation, or it could be threats and harassment, not least to mention financial difficulties or the lack of trust from audiences, which we've heard a lot about today. And we've seen a decline in press freedom across the world, not least in these countries that we're going to be talking about today. But this is happening around the world and an issue that we are all having to face, whether we work in Western countries or Eastern or Southern countries. But despite these massive challenges, there are luckily still journalists who are willing to continue working with journalism and really believe in the role journalism has to play in delivering good, reliable, accurate content to the public. And today we are going to hear 5 stories from 5 different countries where we find journalism marked by very different circumstances, by very different difficulties. And we're going to hear from these 5 remarkable people from around the world, really explaining in detail how they have been able to press on, how they've been able to survive despite the challenges that they're faced with. So without further ado, I will leave the word to our first panelist. So I will leave the word to Befeqadu Hailu Techane from Ethiopia. And you have about 7 to 8 minutes to give a presentation. You want to stand here or you want to sit there? You can do that.
Thank you. To just give you an image, I will just remind you a report from Reporters Without Borders. This year, Reporters Without Borders ranked Ethiopia 110th in the Press Freedom Index. However, Ethiopia was ranked 110th. It has actually stepped up in 40 steps as compared to what it used to have last year. So I will tell you what happened in the past year and even previously. Ethiopia actually has a free press freedom legally in 1991, and then up until 2005 national election, it was progressing. So previous to 2005, Ethiopia has really growing diverse media environment. So specifically, speaking about press media, the printing press, there were many daily newspapers that were circulating at some point to 100,000 copies. But after the contested 2005 election ended in crisis, the government decided to shut down 74 media outlets at once, and many journalists got into exile. A number of other journalists were jailed, and many kept or continue to self-censor themselves. So since 2005, the media have been weakened to the extent in 2018, there were only a handful of printing outlets that were circulating only on weekends. So there were no newspapers, independent newspapers in the weekdays. There were, in 2016, for example, in the heydays of political protests, there were 16 journalists in jail, including myself back then. And many media kept on, they start to publish and kept on being closed after a few months of circulation. So generally, this was what happening. But let me specifically list down, since there is a time limitation, list down a number of challenges the media has been experiencing previously. So there was a problem in registration and ownership that was legally restricted, and also in practice, the bureaucracy itself was very prohibitive, because the government officials used to study the background of the individuals who were trying to register a media organization. The other problem was publishing or printing newspapers. There were no independent publishers of newspapers, because the government was also prohibiting that. Even at some point, publishers associations were trying to establish a printing house, but it didn't succeed. The other challenge was advertisement. Critical media organizations were not, they do not find it easy to have advertisers, because the advertisers themselves were afraid of promoting their products in critical voices, because the government officials or security officials come at them in different excuses. The other challenge was access to information. Critical media organizations used to find it very difficult to find or to access information from the government offices. The other was intimidation, harassment, arrest, and exile. So these were happening, and the media, the independent media, had its own mechanism to respond to these challenges. The most common one was self-censorship. Many media organizations and journalists refrained from criticizing the government. Others went into exile and introduced satellite televisions from exile. Others, these are only few, but they chose to do advocacy journalism at the risk of getting jailed. And the last alternative that was left for many of the journalists was using social media blogospheres to express themselves as an alternative media. And they chose to write anonymously, because it used to be safer. Then political protesters came in to the Ethiopian politics, especially since 2015, continuously up until 2018. And it forced the government to reform from within. Following the reform in 2018, the Ethiopian government has established an advisory council to undergo legal reforms, including the ones that has been repressing the media platform. So currently there are 3 laws that are under revision. The Media Freedom Law, the Broadcast Authority, which is the regulator's law, and also there was Cybercrime Law, which was restricting the freedom of journalists on the social media and blogs. So these are under revisions. In addition to this, the advisory group has identified 33 provisions that were inserted into different laws, including the electoral laws and others, which were directly or indirectly affecting the journalists' workers. So these are under revision, and in the coming weekend, the first draft of the revision will be introduced. We hope things get for the better, but like I told you, the challenges are still abundant. Ethiopia is still ranked 110th in the Freedom of the Press Index. I think I don't have more time. If you have questions, I will be back at it.
So now we move to Asia and to Sonny from Frontier in Myanmar.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. It's quite challenging putting this very complex situation in Myanmar into like 8 minutes, but I will try. So where is Myanmar? Before, 15 years ago, when people asked me where I'm from, and I said Myanmar. So where's Burma? Where's Myanmar? Aung San Suu Kyi. Oh, now I think, where is Myanmar? I think we have to talk about Rohingya. Walloon Joso, that's how people see our country. So my publication, Frontier Myanmar, started 4 years ago. We have a print and online. We do investigative reporting on the print version and breaking news and the current affairs on our digital platforms. I don't really have to enhance so many things because I think we all having the same problems. But like my 2 colleagues were expressed, and Myanmar is not that bad actually, but still in a very sensitive when it comes to reporting on the military. Or Rohingya, or the latest conflicts between the army and the Arakan army. So the censorship has lifted in 2012 August, and but there is an invisible line that we don't want to cross. So it's all about reporting a story with the gut feeling, and it's a self-censorship basically. It's quite okay to report, but whenever we come up with a very impactful story, we don't really know how are we going to end up with. So like every night I go to bed, and if the car pulls over in front of my house, and I was like, oh, are they coming for me, right? So that's the status. We still have to worry about what we are saying. And anything could happen. We have to be very smart in how we support, how we report. What are the challenges we have? Especially after what happened to Rohingyas, it was badly affected to the economy. Even the Rohingya crisis make it worse. The economy started to slow down at the end of 2016. That means there is no advertising revenue. It's getting more and more difficult to get advertising revenue going. And the economy is the first challenge. The second one is the rise of digital, rise of technology. The government or privatized the telecommunications sector in 2013, and that's the same time the government issued the private newspaper license. The point that I'm trying to make is like, unlike other West countries, private media hasn't been able to get a grip But then the technology hit. So it was completely off balance in that way. We have 54 million population in Myanmar, and 21 million has the access to internet. Well, Facebook is the internet in Myanmar. People do not Google. If they want to find something, they search on the Facebook. So Facebook is everything. And because of the very limited media literacy, a lot of people tend to believe what they read, what they see on the Facebook, and that's how print media is slowly dying, and one after another, the small publications basically they have to fold, and all the big media houses also suffering because we cannot really generate enough revenue. The customers are now setting up their own Facebook account and boost it, and they think they have a better reach for that. So that's the second challenge. A third challenge will be the trust between the current government and the media, right? This is a very, how do you say, it's very surprising for us because when we criticize the previous government, U Thein Sein's government, we only have to worry about the president and his cabinet. But now, when we criticize Daw San Suu Kyi, there are millions of people who worship her, and they just like starting to attack. And we are against millions of people that they don't even read our publication, and that's how we are being attacked online. And a lot of people are getting a lot of death threats from Messenger, from WhatsApp, from SMSs. So my reporters, they really have to deactivate their accounts and wait for a couple of months, then get back online, that sort of thing. So that's pretty much the current media landscape. It's a bad time to be in the media, put it that way. No chance to get money, but you have very good chance to get arrested. So how are we coping with it? Well, I think, like Maria said, the quality journalism, that's the only way that we can cope with this situation. And because if you look at Southeast Asia, you look at Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand, and China, you know, I think because the US is fading away, now people want change, and I think they are now trying to worship someone, or they believe into one party system. So it's a lot of people are moving to that way, and it's quite dangerous. People don't care about press freedom anymore. Media freedom, they think that media freedom is for the media people only. It's very difficult to educate that press freedom, it's for everyone. And the second thing is, how are we trying to sustain? So I had to convert my ad sales team into content marketing agency. And we do branded content, we do editorial, we do sponsor content, using the strength of the newsroom without banning any editorial ethics. I think that's our strength to tell the storytelling, and that's where we are getting revenue from, and every single penny that we earn from the agency support the newsroom. And now we are working on the membership model, and hopefully we're going to roll it out in September, and hopefully that will be successful and that will sustain our business. Is the time up? Thank you so much. If you have any questions, please ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonny. I think you also touched upon a lot of universal problems that probably a lot of the panelists and probably also people in the audience can recognize, and not only what's relevant to the Myanmar context, which has become a bit more challenging the last couple of years. Yes, so now we move to Turkey and Ruşen Çakır.
Thank you very much. This 4 years ago, I launched a new media outlet with few friends of mine, Medyascope. We first made direct broadcasting with Periscope application. But from the beginning, few people believed in us because first they didn't realize how to do journalism with social media application. Second, how to find the money. Third, how to challenge the government's repression. So that was, these were three big questions, and they were really very concrete questions and obstacle, but we achieved. At the beginning, we were 3 professional and some young volunteers, but 4 years later, now we are about 40 professional, mostly young, and so many volunteers and interns. And the half of crew are women. And this is a kind of success story, but this success was not very easy. As you know, that my country is one of the biggest prison for journalists. And the government controls the media's 90% or something like this, and the other 10% are really very engaged media outlet as opposition. So that in this landscape, it was really very difficult, and still it is really very difficult to insist on conventional journalism, professional journalism. And in one hand, you should be influential. On the other hand, you should not provoke the interest of the government. So that was really very difficult equilibrium, balance. And I didn't know the real answer, and I don't think that there is a magical formula of this, but it was really, and it is really very interesting, our survival as Medyascope in 4 years. And at the beginning, we were doing a kind of maybe 6 hours in a week direct broadcasting. And now, every day, except weekend, we are not working in weekend. We are free working weekend. And in 5 days, at least 7 hours in each days, we have coverage, not only politics, but also culture, sports, and everyday life, etc. So this, and we are also cooperating with some NGOs, and we are inviting them to our studios, and they are doing their regular program as on urbanism, on women issue, on law issue, etc. So how did we achieve this? And I think that in a country like Turkey, where the authoritarianism of Tayyip Erdogan is really very heavy, we should be very careful, but being careful doesn't mean submit to the government. I can translate it like this: we didn't do everything we believe in. We didn't say everything we believe in, but we never say that we don't believe in. Here in my country, there's submissions for media is, I know so many friends, colleagues of mine, who are working in governmental media, and they are lying. They are consciously lying. They know that that's lie, but they say that I have children, I have blah, blah, etc. I should survive. But we are trying outside of this governmental media pool, we are trying to do new things, some attractive things, but we are also very careful about not provoking any reaction of the government. So this is really very difficult because in a polarized country like Turkey, when you are careful, you are criticized by your friends. Being that, oh, you are very passive, you are not doing journalism, because for them, the journalism means activism. They want us to be opposition, to take position every time, and react to the government, react to the President Erdogan every time. But instead, we are preferring to choose our own agenda, not reactive to the government, but proactive in our life. So this is it was really very difficult, and it was really very difficult because of this obstacle, but believe me that because of the pessimism of our close friends, of our colleagues. Turkey is a big country, and Turkey is a really very huge media tradition, and from the Ottoman Empire to the Republic, etc. And we have a really very rich media sector. There are some thousands of people who are working in this, but most of these peoples are really obeying to the rules of the days, of today. So that was really very difficult. But we insist and we achieved, we survived, and now we are more respected, we are more understood by people, and I think that now this is the real second episode for us. Just began, because for these 4 years, everybody in both poles were waiting for our death. But we survived. Now they are really very interested in what we are doing, and we are now more careful than before.
Thank you so much. Also some interesting points about striking the right balance. So now we'll go to the final panelist. So we'll go to Brice from the radio in Ndeke Luka in Central African Republic, and we'll have a simultaneous translation.
Radio Ndeke Luka, c'est un des vieux projets de la Fondation Hirondelle. Elle a célébré le 29 mars dernier son 19e anniversaire. Comme je le dis, c'est un projet de la Fondation Hirondelle. Nous travaillons dans un contexte assez difficile, comme dans tous les pays en crise. Radio Ndeke Luka, aujourd'hui, a un vaste réseau qui travaille pratiquement sur l'ensemble du territoire, dont une bonne partie est contrôlée par des groupes armés. Alors,
I represent the Fondation Hirondelle, and on the 29th of May, we celebrated our 19th anniversary. We work in a very difficult context. In a crisis-beset country, there are networks, there are armed networks, armed groups throughout the country.
Alors, je parle de la République centrafricaine. Parfois, quand je me déplace dans certains pays, je parle de la République centrafricaine. Il y a des gens qui ne connaissent pas la République centrafricaine. On pense au Cameroun, on pense au Tchad, ou bien encore en République démocratique du Congo.
When I travel to other countries from my own country, the Central African Republic, people aren't really sure what this is. They say, oh, well, it must be Cameroon, it must be Chad, maybe it's the DRC.
La République centrafricaine, c'est ce pays-là qui se trouve au centre de l'Afrique, qui a des frontières avec les deux Soudans, le Tchad, le Cameroun et puis les deux Congos.
The Central African Republic is really at the very heart of Africa. It shares borders with the two Sudans, with Chad, with Cameroon.
Depuis son indépendance en 1960, elle a déjà eu une dizaine de coups d'État. Donc des présidents qui arrivent, à chaque fois, ils sont renversés par un coup d'État. Mais là, je voudrais parler du contexte actuel, la récente crise.
Okay, we gained our independence in 1960, but since then the country has seen many coups d'État, about 10 where presidents have been overthrown, but now I'm going to talk to you more about the current context.
Fin 2012, précisément au mois de décembre, 5 groupes armés du pays se sont coalisés pour attaquer le pouvoir du président François Bozizé.
In December 2012, 5 armed groups formed a coalition to attack President Bouazizi.
En mars 2013, ils ont renversé le pouvoir, ils ont pris Bangui, la capitale.
In March 2013, they overthrew the government and took power and seized control of the capital, Bangui.
Le premier jour de leur arrivée à Bangui, la première visite, c'était à Ndeke, là où je travaille.
The first thing they came to visit was Luka, where I work.
Et heureusement pour les journalistes, quand on a commencé à entendre des coups de feu juste à l'entrée de Bangui, on a demandé à tout le monde de partir.
Well, fortunately for us journalists, when we started to hear shots on the outskirts of the city, we told everyone to leave.
Quand ils sont arrivés, ils ont trouvé personne, mais ils ont quand même pillé quelques matériels de la radio. Ils ont pris des motos des journalistes et puis une voiture de la radio.
But so that when they arrived, they didn't find any journalists, but they still plundered, they broke some of the radio equipment, they took a motorcycle, they took a car that belonged to the radio station.
C'est depuis ce jour-là que les conditions de travail des journalistes sont devenues difficiles dans le pays, depuis 2013.
So it's since then, since 2013, that working conditions in the country for journalists have become very difficult indeed.
Entre 2013 et 2014, quand il y a eu un autre mouvement armé, ça c'est un mouvement populaire des villageois qu'on appelle anti-balaka. Je pense que vous avez entendu parler des anti-balaka, des Séliques en Centrafrique.
Then in 2013-2014, there was another armed movement that was village-based. This was called the anti-balaka. I think you may have heard of it.
Ils ont marché sur Bangui, toujours en décembre 2013, pour attaquer la Séléka.
So in December 2013, they marched on Bangui to attack Basilika.
Et c'est là que la situation a complètement changé. Les journalistes ne peuvent plus travailler librement à Bangui comme à l'intérieur du pays parce que les Séléka avaient des armes lourdes positionnées sur des véhicules 4x4. Ils sont partout dans la ville, partout dans le pays et c'est difficile pour les journalistes de faire le travail.
So since that day, it's been very difficult for journalists to work, not only in Bangui, but also throughout the country because the Silika movement, they're heavily armed and they control a lot of the country.
Et donc j'ai parlé de 19 ans ici, pour la première fois de toute son histoire. Ndeke a cessé d'émettre pendant 48 heures pendant ces moments difficiles.
So I told you it was the 19th anniversary of my media organization, but it did stop broadcasting for 48 hours. Il a cessé
d'émettre pendant 48 heures.
Okay, yeah, it stopped broadcasting for 48 hours.
Et maintenant, le nouveau président, le chef de cette coalition rebelle qui doit maintenant s'exprimer à la population pour dire « Je suis le nouveau président », il ne sait comment s'exprimer parce que la seule radio écoutée par tous les Centrafricains, c'est Radio Ndeke.
Okay, so now the new president, he's going to address the country. And the only radio that everyone listens to is our radio. So he's going to go through us.
Et maintenant, il envoie des gens pour chercher les journalistes de la radio pour venir ouvrir la radio parce qu'il doit faire une déclaration.
So then he came looking for the radio journalists and said, look, can you reopen the radio station because you have to do a broadcast for me?
Et donc, c'est là qu'on a repris le travail, on a commencé à travailler, mais avec des menaces régulières, des téléphones, des menaces de mort, c'est des SMS qui arrivent, des éléments Séléka qui arrivent régulièrement au sein de la radio avec des armes lourdes, avec des corps des personnes tuées, tout ça. Et ça, c'est tous les jours.
So the problem, we've resumed our work, but we receive regular death threats by phone, by SMS. Silika members often burst into the premises. They're heavily armed. Sometimes they even drag the bodies of people they've killed with them.
Certains journalistes ont commencé à décourager un tout petit peu. On les a encouragés. On dit c'est notre travail. Si on ne le fait pas, il n'y aura personne pour le faire. C'est notre travail. On va rester pour informer la population.
So some journalists started getting discouraged. We tried to really encourage them. We said, this is our work. We have to do it. We have to stay here. We have to keep working.
Jusqu'à aujourd'hui, Radio Ndeke reste la seule radio indépendante. Je parle ici de radio, mais aujourd'hui, ce n'est plus, on ne fait pas que de la radio parce qu'on a aussi un site internet et puis on est présent aussi sur les réseaux sociaux.
Okay, so today our radio station is the only independent radio station, but we're more than just a radio station. We have an internet site, we do other things than just radio.
Et donc, avec l'arrivée du nouveau président élu en 2016, il a convoqué les journalistes. Donc, il a rassuré les journalistes que pendant son mandat, aucun journaliste ne sera jeté en prison.
So the new president, he came in, he was elected in 2016, and he got all the journalists together, and he promised that during his term of office, no journalist would be thrown into prison.
Cela nous a encouragés et maintenant nous avons réfléchi à une manière de travailler pour essayer de ressouder les liens sociaux parce que c'était une crise politique qui à un moment donné a pris un caractère intercommunautaire. Il y a eu des affrontements entre différentes communautés.
So now the question is, how can we work? Maybe this was just a political position, and there are real confrontations, there are clashes between different communities in the country.
Et maintenant il faut rassembler ces communautés. Mais comment? Nous avons mis en place un programme spécial, des émissions sur la cohésion sociale, sur le vivre ensemble, sur comment faire pour revivre comme auparavant.
So now the question is, how can we bring the people together? So we've given this a lot of thought. We've tried to really put the accent on social cohesion, how we can all live together.
Mais tout ça, ce n'est pas facile. C'est toujours difficile pour les journalistes, surtout d'accéder aux zones contrôlées par les groupes armés.
But this is tough for journalists. It's really hard for them to access some of these zones that are areas that are controlled by these heavily armed people.
Dans toutes ces zones, il n'y a pas l'autorité de l'État. Dans quelques zones, il y a un semblant, je pourrais le dire comme ça, de présence de l'autorité de l'État, mais toujours contrôlée par des groupes armés.
The problem is that in these zones, these areas, there's no real authority of the state. There's a little bit of a semblance of it, but really it's these armed groups that control them.
Et je pense que vous vous souvenez de la mort de nos 3 confrères russes, paix à leur âme, au mois de juillet dernier en Centrafrique.
I think you all remember the 3 Russian colleagues who were killed last July in Central African Republic.
Ils ont été tués à une centaine de kilomètres de Bangui, où il y avait la présence de l'autorité de l'État.
They were killed about 100 kilometers away from Bangui, where there is state authority.
Et tout cela pour dire que malgré cette présence, mais les conditions de travail des journalistes sont toujours difficiles, mais on essaie tant bien que mal d'amener la population à revivre ensemble, à oublier un tout petit peu la crise. On essaie de faire ce qu'on appelle chez nous, ça c'est au niveau de la radio, le journalisme de développement et de paix.
So we're trying to really make sure that we're trying to help people live together. We're trying to come up with what we call peace journalism, journalism of peace.
Alors, nous le faisons comment? Nous allons dans des localités où les gens ont des initiatives de cohésion sociale, de vivre ensemble. Les gens commencent à ressouder les liens entre eux. Nous faisons des reportages sur ces initiatives.
So how do we do this? We go into some of the villages where people have social cohesion initiatives. We really see what they're doing, and then we report on this.
Et en le faisant, puisque la radio est écoutée presque sur l'ensemble du territoire avec des antennes relais, ça amène les populations des autres régions qui ne sont pas encore prêts à accepter les uns les autres, à se dire, mais par exemple, dans l'Ouest, là-bas, les gens commencent à revivre ensemble. Pourquoi nous, on ne le ferait pas?
So our radio station is listened to throughout the country. We have powerful relays that pass on the message. So people from other regions, they're saying, well, look, if they can do that in the East, how come we can't do that where we are?
Et nous savons que dans ces régions, puisqu'il est très difficile pour nos correspondants, parce que nous avons aussi des correspondants dans ces localités de travailler, nous avons mis en place une petite méthode pour les accompagner.
So in these regions, we have correspondents, and we've worked out a method to help these correspondents.
Alors, nous leur avons fait des petites formations sur comment travailler en période de crise. Quels termes employer, quels termes ne pas employer, parce qu'ils sont avec les hommes armés, il n'y a personne pour les protéger.
So we've we've organized mini training sessions, how people can work together in these crisis situations, what terms, what words they can use and what words they should avoid, because they're often surrounded by heavily armed people.
Nous leur avons dit, par exemple, je prends un petit exemple sur un verbe égorger.
For instance, the verb to cut someone's throat.
Et donc, nous leur disons, vous voyez, vous êtes en situation de crise, quand vous écrivez, s'il y a 10 personnes qui ont été tuées, peut-être égorgées, hein, comme on a l'habitude de l'écouter dans les médias locaux, 10 personnes ont été égorgées par des éleveurs peuls.
So in a crisis situation, for example, if you say, well, yeah, 10 people had their throats cut by Peul cattle raisers.
Et pour nous, ces genres d'informations, dire que 10 personnes ont été égorgées par des éleveurs peuls pourrait susciter à la haine ou appeler à la vengeance.
But the problem is this, precisely this kind of information can trigger hatred, can lead to violence.
Alors, nous le faisons comment? Nous leur disons simplement, c'est vrai, 10 personnes ont été égorgées, mais c'est qu'elles ont été tuées. Il serait mieux de dire 10 personnes ont été tuées, et au lieu de dire par des éleveurs peuls ici, hein, ça peut être une stigmatisation, mais par des éleveurs nomades.
So we say 10 people were killed, not that they had their throats cut, and they weren't killed, for example, by Peul raising cattle, they were killed by nomad Peul.
Et donc, en le faisant comme ça, nous arrivons à pratiquement rassembler les gens, rassembler les centrafricains, les éleveurs peuls qui ont fui vers le Cameroun ont commencé à rentrer parce que depuis le Cameroun, sur leur site, ils écoutent la radio, ils entendent que voilà, maintenant il y a la paix, les gens commencent à revivre ensemble, ils reviennent en masse.
So this way we can bring people together. For example, a lot of the Peul cattle raisers, they fled to Cameroon, but now they listen to our radio, they say to themselves, aha, things are going better, there's peace. So they're starting to come back.
Et maintenant, le gros problème avec tout ça, c'est que nous ne sommes pas trop aimés par les autorités politiques et les groupes armés.
The problem is we're not the favorite people for the authorities and the armed groups.
Les groupes armés ne veulent pas entendre parler de Radio Ndeke Luka parce que pour eux, c'est la radio qui diffuse toujours des informations concernant leurs exactions.
The problem is the armed groups are not really fans of our radio station because our radio station precisely broadcasts stories about the terrible things they do, the atrocities that they commit.
Ils ne veulent pas écouter parler de la radio, mais ils aiment écouter la radio.
They don't want to hear about our station, but they like listening to the radio.
Je prends un exemple, un délai dans le Nord, à un moment donné, puisqu'on a un partenariat avec la société de téléphonie mobile Orange, donc le groupe électrogène qui fait fonctionner notre antenne a cessé de fonctionner pour faute de carburant.
So in the North, we're partners with the Orange, the mobile telephone company, and we had a problem. Our electrical generating set ran out of fuel.
Et ce sont les responsables des groupes armés qui contrôlent la localité qui ont posé la question, qui ont appelé notre correspondant pour lui demander mais pourquoi la radio a cessé.
So these armed groups, they called our correspondents to say, hey, how come you stopped broadcasting?
Et il a dit, puisqu'il y a plus de carburant dans le groupe électrogène.
Well, there's no fuel left for our generators.
Et eux-mêmes, ils ont pris du carburant à leur niveau, ils ont envoyé pour qu'on mette dans le groupe électrogène.
So these armed groups brought fuel so that our generators could go back online.
Et donc, c'est dans cette condition aujourd'hui que nous travaillons avec le pouvoir public aussi. Hein. Les gens n'aiment pas qu'on parle de ce qui ne marche pas dans le pays. Il faut toujours être un média qui est là, prêt pour applaudir, même si ça marche, ça ne marche pas. On doit toujours dire ça marche et on doit les applaudir.
So, for example, this is the context we work on. The authorities don't like to hear about things that don't work. They want a fan club where we applaud everything that does work.
Je me souviens, au début de cette année, on nous a interdit d'accès à la présidente pour la couverture médiatique. Hein, on nous a dit, pour vous, Ndeke Luka, c'est fini, vous ne pouvez plus venir ici couvrir les activités de la présidence.
I remember early this year, we were forbidden access to the president. We were told, no, you can't keep covering things relating to the president.
Alors, vous allez vous poser la question, c'est quoi la raison?
Well, you might be asking yourselves, why?
On nous dit simplement parce que quand le président parle 30 minutes, 1 heure, vous ne diffusez que quelques extraits.
The problem is when the president talks for half an hour or even an hour, you only broadcast a few highlights.
Bon, après, ils sont revenus à de bons sentiments, ils nous ont acceptés. Maintenant, on peut couvrir les activités de la présidence sans problème.
Okay, but then they came back in their position and they agreed that we could cover the president, no problem.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
I have to
J'ai
stop
été
you
un peu
here.
long.
Okay.
But I'm sure you could give us other interesting examples. And I think you also touch upon a couple of very important issues. The fact that that journalists tend to get disencouraged, understandably, by this situation, and it becomes really important, but also quite difficult, particularly for editors, to continue encourage journalists to press on and do this very important job. But also the fact that you raised, Brice, on the importance of conflict sensitivity in reporting, particularly in conflict areas, of course. So we have like 10 minutes left, something like that. And I just want to sum up, because we've heard a bunch of different strategies related to many different areas. So we heard about different approaches to journalism, different ways you can do journalism, whether it's peace journalism, whether it's advocacy journalism. We also heard about using different forms of channels in the case that the channels that you have available to you are blocked, like in the case of Masr. Then you have to apply other channels to really get the content out into the open, or whether it be social media that journalists then apply to get those important messages out to the public. We also heard that, like in many other countries, the issues are also related to the economy, financial issues. So it's all about finding the right business models to actually stay in business and continue to produce these important information to the public. So before we end, and I hope we have time for, okay, maybe not that much time, but I would like that we can go maybe one round to have each one of you highlight the most important strategy. I mean, if you were to advise a colleague faced with maybe all of a sudden a closing scenario in their particular country, what would be your advice to that journalist or editor to continue pressing on and really ensuring that information gets to the public? And let's start with the same line.
It depends on the situation or the challenges that are faced at a point, but most importantly, I advise any journalist to keep on speaking and using any alternative platform to express themselves or to report on the situation they see. Otherwise, the more they are trying to self-censor or keep quiet and avoid some stories from being told, there is always a damage that follows. It may be to other communities or to other parties. Also, it may be against themselves. So they have to keep speaking and reporting on things, including the challenges or the threats they may be experiencing. Because personally, it worked for me. I use as a strategy, visibility as a strategy to protect myself and also keep on reporting and saying things that must be said. So visibility is also one way of discouraging the other parties who are working against the journalists. So I think this is the most important thing must be noted.
I think definitely understand the audience and because we are all having this Facebook fatigue, and it's a lot of fake news going around, and I think keeping the quality of the journalism high and build the community around responsible journalism and basically listen to what your audience has to say and keep up the good work, I think, yeah.
According to my experiments, I worked 30 years in mainstream media in my country, and my last 4 years are happiest years of my career. And what I learned here, we should trust the young people. We should trust the women, especially in the media working. And we should be innovative, and we should be we should stay calm. We should be a little bit slow in order to install something. I mean that so many people are really trying to behave quickly. We don't need to be quick. We don't be very careful, maybe, very slow, maybe, but in some sustainability. Courage, we need a courage, but this courage should be sustainable. And on the other hand, in a country like Turkey, where authoritarian rules dominates, people are not courageous enough to show their solidarity to you. On the other hand, the trolls or the attackers are really very courageous because they are supported by the government. But in the reality, we observe that we have real supporters. Maybe that's not the time for them that they show their support. But if we survived in these 4 years, this is due to the silent supporters. Maybe they are silent, but they support us. And when they meet you in a public transport, etc., there's my experiment here. Every day I am using public transport, and every day, every time I met people, women, young people, or old people who are watching our videos through YouTube or through Periscope, and they are encouraging us and they are praying us. Normally we are not Islamists or something, we are secular-minded people, but I met so many people, religious people, who said that they were praying for journalists like us. So that I think that these times for my country, I hope and I know that, is temporary, and we should be a little bit patient. We should stay calm. But the real journalism, if you do this in a professional way, you can survive and you can win.
Thank you. Brice?
Moi, je vais être très court. En ce qui me concerne, je pense que premièrement, il faut savoir à qui on veut parler et on veut parler de quoi.
Okay, I'm going to be very short. As far as I'm concerned, first you have to know who you want to talk to and what you want to say.
Et après, le respect de la vérité.
And you have to have respect for truth.
Le courage et la prudence. Merci.
Courage and prudence.
Thank you. Let those be the final words of today's panel. So thank you very much, all of you. And thank you for staying and listening.